All right, friends. Good morning, good morning, good morning. How's everybody doing today? My name is Aiden. I'm an educator here at the Natural History Museum of Utah. We've been having really fun Research Quest classes all week, and today we are doing an interview with probably one of my favorite people in the whole wide world, my friend Christy Bills. Good morning, Christy. How are you doing today?
So good. So happy to talk to people about bugs.
Oh my gosh. I mean, really is like every day is a good day. You get to talk to people about bugs, I think.
Yep.
Once upon a time, there was a time when I was not so sold on bugs. Like I didn't dislike them, but I was like, that's cool. But now I'm like, oh, I'm in deep on bugs. They're so much cooler, I think, when you start to observe them really closely.
Mm-hmm.
So my friends who are joining us who are not Christy Bills and are just tuning in on our Research Quest Live website or Facebook Live, if you have any questions for Christy, she is our entomology and malacology collections manager, and I'm going to ask you a little bit more about that in a second. But if you'd like to ask us any questions, press the Ask a Question button or type out a comment on Facebook, and we will do our best to ask it and get back to you. So first things first, Christy, what is entomology and malacology?
Yeah, so entomology is the study of insects, but also we throw in some spiders, even though that's arachnology. So mostly we study things that have 6 legs, 2 antennae, 4 wings, so it's the study of insects. So, and malacology is shells, things like that. But I don't really do much of the malacology, even though I manage the collection. Entomology is my specialty. So I'd rather talk about bugs than snails.
I get that. So what does an entomology collection look like?
So an entomology collection, different specimens are preserved in different ways. So specimens are often kept on pins so that they can be handled safely. And hopefully they'll be preserved forever. We hope to keep them forever. But some of them are kept in papered envelopes. If they can be, like a butterfly can be folded, and they're kept in cute little envelopes, and they're kept in little rows like a card catalog. And they have little numbers, so we know where every single one of them is. And that's sometimes dragonflies, because if dragonflies are in a pin, a lot of times their heads pop off. They're very naughty. And then also some specimens are kept in alcohol. So if they have a soft body, like a caterpillar, or they're very tiny, so it'd be hard to pin them like an ant. There's different ways to pin small things, but a lot of times we keep things in alcohol. And so you'll see jars and jars of things in alcohol, and then we label those as well. The most important part of a specimen, besides its body, is the label that says when and where and who collected it. And over time, we've become more specific about the information we put on those labels, making the specimens even more valuable as time increases.
Well, that leads me to 2 important questions.
Okay.
1, what was the last bug you prepared?
Gosh, I haven't been in the museum for
I know, it feels like it's been a really long time. I realized that was maybe like a mean question to ask.
Oh, actually, it was this millipede that I have right on hand.
Oh, perfect.
I have pet millipedes, and one of them sadly expired. And when it expired, I didn't want to waste it because I thought, well, it will be useful for education and outreach. And look, here it is coming to use. I have it right here on hand.
Education happening right now.
So this is a non-traditional method for preparing specimens because when we do it for education or outreach, we're not necessarily saving it for genetic analysis, and we anticipate that it will be handled more frequently. So this doesn't have data about when and where it was collected. And actually what I had to do was string a piece of wire through this millipede. So millipedes have a tendency to disassemble themselves into segments.
Uh-huh.
And so I bet if we were going to keep it in a collection, we'd put it in alcohol. But because I intended to use it for an education drawer, I had to push a piece of wire, which I happen to have on hand, through its body. And then eventually I'll glue the segments together that have disassembled. And I'll put it in a drawer at the museum so people can compare a large millipede to a centipede or to other types of insects. And we can talk about the different legs per segment and that kind of a thing. So there you go. That's the last specimen I prepared.
That's very cool. I guess my next question is, so you found yours, sadly, RIP, had passed away, but like in general, like where do the bugs that are collected, like how are they collected?
So from a variety of ways, but usually part of a research project. So usually scientists are asking a specific question. So one question that we're asking at a building that's next door to the museum is we're asking, if we change the landscape, what different bugs will come to the landscape? What different bugs will come there? So that seems like a simple question. And how we've had to answer that is we've had to collect many bugs for many years on the old landscape in a specific way that we do the same exact way of collecting when the plants all change. And then we can say, using the same method, these different bugs came, or the same bugs came, or so usually the bugs come when we're asking a specific science question. There's another place in town where there's a small park and somebody's doing a study where they're adding new plants. And again, we're going to start collecting where the old plants are. And then using the same methods as the plants mature, we're going to be collecting using the same methods. And then we're going to say, did the bugs change? How did they change? Were there more bugs? Were there different bugs? So usually the bugs come when we're asking a question and we're collecting and hoping that we can get new answers to the way bugs behave in the world.
So I guess we have this. So not only are scientists asking questions and you're collecting like very specific, like before, almost it feels like a very with a lot of controls, like before and after type situations. What are some of the methods? I guess that's the question I'm looking for. Like, what are some of the methods you might use to collect up bugs?
With nets. So just the old-fashioned net that you swing in the air. But when we're trying to use controls to say we want to replicate the conditions, then we collect at the same time of day with around the same temperatures and for the same amount of time. So you can't go out for 10 minutes and then collect another day for an hour and say that's the same. So, and different nets are for different purposes. So there's nets for collecting in the water. There's nets for collecting in the air. And then there's nets that are called beat nets that are for just bashing into bushes.
Just shaking stuff out. Come on out of
get in there because some bugs will really hold on. There's also nets that look a little bit like, it's not really a net, like an upside down umbrella. And you just bash a bush again under, and then you hold kind of the upside down umbrella and see what falls. Some people are interested in very tiny bugs that are in what's called the leaf litter. So leaf litter is like little bits of old things that are under trees or bushes. It's a very interesting biome under there, or habitat. So you collect all that leaf litter and you put it in a funnel, and then you put a light above it, and the funnel is in a bucket. And the light makes the bugs that are in the leaf litter not happy. So they go down the bottom of the funnel and fall down into the bucket. And then you can see what bugs were hiding in the leaf litter. So that's one way to do it. There's actually so many different ways to collect bugs. And innovative children often think of new ways to do it. So,
yeah. We have one of our first questions from Camden Freeze from Salt Lake City asks, when you go out and research insects, what type of insect do you really look forward to seeing? Basically, your favorite insect. Camden, you might not know this about Christy. She has a hard time picking a favorite bug, just like me. But yeah, go for it.
It changes all the time. So a lot of my research is about fireflies in Utah, and I've been doing it for about 5 years. So I've seen a lot of populations of fireflies. But every time I see them, I still feel all tingly, like I'm seeing something magical. So I really love to see that. But yesterday I was just weeding in my backyard, and my rose bush is all covered in aphids and ladybugs. And I saw a teeny beetle, just like like no bigger than the width of your fingernail, so teeny. And it was blue and red, and it was so many pretty colors. And, I just thought, what a magical moment, because I was just sitting on the ground. So sometimes you just like relax and look in a very small space, and you'll see something really surprising and magical. So just, you'll see magical things everywhere with bugs.
Yeah. I mean, I always think it's so interesting because one of the places I have done education, I would say, like, do you have animals in your backyard? And people would tell me, no, I don't. And I'm like, well, do you have bugs? And they're like, yes. And I'm like, good news. That's an animal. I was out in like my driveway and I gasped and scared my neighbor because I was so excited to see these little red bugs that were like the size of a pinprick. I know now that they're pests, but they're this beautiful shade of crimson, and like I love them anyways. They're very cute. Oh, Robert from North Carolina has an excellent question. I've heard of this. He says, I've heard that there's fireflies that blink all at once. Have you heard about that before?
Yeah. So there's actually many different species of fireflies, thousands, and they have a lot of different kinds of behaviors. That's called synchronous fireflies. And so in different parts of the world, sometimes they do that. And it's pretty amazing. There's asynchronous flashing, synchronous flashing, there's glowing flashing. I mean, there's just, I could talk about fireflies for about 3 hours and then you would say enough. But if you're interested, there's an amazing TED talk by Sarah Lewis about fireflies, and you can learn more about that from her. She's kind of the national expert on fireflies, really great person. And that would be a great place to follow up if you want to know more.
Yeah, fireflies are super cool. I mean, they're a very particularly like magical appeal, like seeming bug, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Let's see. We've got a lot more questions. I know that I have a lot of questions. Oh, important. So you're talking about these controlled studies where you're looking at the before and after. And in our investigations, we are studying the Uinta forests, and we're looking specifically at the beetles that are engaging with the lodgepole pines. What kind have you ever been out to do that Uinta research, or do we have those specimens from the Uintas in our museum?
We don't have any beetles from that particular study. So entomology is so vast. There's people who just specifically study agricultural entomology or forest entomology or medical entomology. It's just super vast. So somebody who specializes in pests of trees is not the same as, you know what I mean? It's just really vast.
Yeah, there's like all sorts of little categories.
But I think one of the things that's super interesting about that is the way people perceive danger and fear and pests. So there's a lot of big beetles, and actually most of the pests of trees that are problematic are very, very tiny. There's some of the tiny beetles. So we do have some tiny beetles in the collection that are pests of trees, and they are, again, about the size of your fingernail. Or smaller than your pinky nail. They're very tiny. So some of the bigger beetles that are really gorgeous and fancy and like, wow, you think, oh, I wouldn't want, people say this all the time, I hear, oh, I wouldn't want to see one of those. And it's like, those are harmless. Don't worry about the big ones. It's the little sneaky guys that'll get you, that'll cause problems. So it's an interesting, I'm really fascinated by the way we perceive danger, perceive problems, but it's actually often counterintuitive. So yeah, they're little teeny tiny problems. Yeah.
Here's a big question. Mm-hmm. How do we find out like what bugs were in an area before the museum was there? How would we talked a little bit with Dr. Burnell about doing like cores of the soil and things like that. Like, are there ways and are there concerns of entomologists of like what bugs were there before and what is moving in, and how we deal with like invasive species and things like that?
Yeah,
I know that's a real big one.
Wow. Yeah, that is actually super interesting. I mean, that's so important. I don't even know where to start. Prehistorically, we can understand where bugs were through fossil records. People study that through invertebrate paleontology. And there's a great online research through the Los Angeles County Museum. They have a lot of images of invertebrate paleontology. Highly recommend. We can study things through amber, insects trapped in amber. But if we're talking about less ancient, more modern, last few hundred years, we can use insect collections to know what has been where. And that's perfectly like one of the prime uses of insect collections. Have things been here? Are they not here? Are new things here? Very important. So why is this super important? Murder hornets have been in the news lately.
Oh, we should definitely talk about those.
As an invasive that we should worry about because they sting people. They're not, none have been found in 2020. So they're probably not in North America. But there are invasive insects that we do need to worry about all the time. So our Department of Agriculture's, our state and county entities are working constantly to be aware of invasive insects. So the problem with an invasive insect is where it's native to, it has predators. It's part of the ecology and it's held in balance. When it comes to an area where it doesn't have native predators, it goes crazy. It's like, hey, nobody here eats me. I'm going to eat whatever I want and go wild, which means it's a threat to our forest health. It's a threat to our agriculture. It's a threat to all of our landscaping, our urban canopy that we all rely on to keep our cities livable. So departments of agriculture are constantly monitoring for invasive plants, same problems, and pests. So oftentimes it's the little guys, again, that don't look scary, that can cause long-term problems. So we use, to answer more briefly, we use insect collections for this, but we also use community input. So people who are aware of the flora and fauna around them can sometimes use apps like iNaturalist or report to their Department of Agriculture, hey, I've seen this bug and it doesn't look right here. Or I've seen this plant and it doesn't look right here. I've never seen it before and it could be a problem. So we're all part of the solution to keeping an eye out for invasive plants and insects.
Yeah, that's all critical community science and citizen science that I know that you and I participate in all the time. And actually, not only are we talking, we're going to talk more about citizen science opportunities tomorrow, and especially on Friday when we have an interview with Ellen Erickson, and it's going to be an hour long, and we're going to learn all about how to do iNaturalist if you've never done it before, my friends. And if you have any questions for Christy, please press the ask a question button or leave a comment on Facebook. That's not how I type, but that might be how you type. Yeah, like kitten paws. Leave us a question on Facebook. Camden from Salt Lake also has, we're going to follow up on this. The Asian giant hornet is its proper name, correct?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. He says, are you concerned about the Asian giant hornet since everyone is sort of freaking out about it?
No, not at all. And that's because the Department of Agriculture in the area where it was found in Washington is on the job. They're doing a great job of monitoring and seeking to remove it. And the people in the area are keeping an eye out for it so they can keep it if it's found again, but it hasn't even been found this year. So the other thing is, it certainly can't come to high, dry areas like Utah. So even if it were to become established in the Pacific Northwest, it can't even come to Utah because we don't have the right environment. Also, the amount of people that it kills from stings in Asia, which it's a huge area that it's its range. That's what we call like the whole place that it's native to is its range, is the same amount of people that die from bees and wasp stings in the United States, according to the CDC. So it's no more dangerous than the things we live with every day anyway. So yeah, they're big and yeah, they're kind of freaky, but I don't think it's ever going to be really that big of a problem. I think we have other things to worry about.
I really like their very munchy looking mandibles. I think it's very intimidating, but also it's such a strong energy that they're bringing to it's just been like the fun swerve and fun thing to talk about. Let's see. Oh, that brings me to an excellent, well, here's an important question. Do we have any in the collection of the museum?
No, because we don't have many things from that area. I mean, we have some things from Asia. Most of the things we have are from the Intermountain West because that's where we are.
Yeah.
So I don't think we do have any. I might have purchased some for outreach a long time ago, but I haven't been in the museum to check. So
let's see, more questions. Oscar via Facebook asks, ooh, Oscar is having a personal problem with some of the they say we're having a problem with carpenter bees in our cedar pergola. Any advice? I love carpenter bees. I used to do the little like carpenter bee houses and like the little bee burrito helps and things like that.
yeah, I'm not great at giving pest advice because I'm a bug promoter. So not that I think you have to live with all bugs. I mean, there's some bugs I won't live with either. So my advice always for bug, like if you have a bug that you can't live with, is to refer to the USU extension office in your area. So the Utah State University offers homeowners and gardeners pest advice in each county in the state of Utah. And I would look to them for advice.
Also, carpenter bees are really cute. I'm sorry that that's a problem.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that they're a problem for you, but I think they're really cute. I wish they could be here with me.
Yeah.
Wish we could do a trade, Oscar.
Yeah.
Let's see what else. Ooh, here's a good one. We're moving out of spring into summer. What kind of insects might students find in the Salt Lake area coming into summer, maybe? What's our bug forecast?
I think you asked me that this last time, and I said, I don't know. Go outside and you tell me.
That's fair. I went outside and I found these little crimson bugs that were on my vegetables, but I like them. They're pretty.
I mean, there are literally thousands of bugs outside. I couldn't even tell you. Butterflies have started flying. Moths are nectaring. Aphids. People have started posting cicada pictures. I've seen
Andy really likes the cicada.
Yeah.
They're his favorite bug. I remember being a kid and having like the cicada. I don't remember the name of the molts,
Yeah.
but like put them like they just sit perfectly, and you can put them like in someone's hair, in your own hair. My friend made like a little robot toy out of them.
They look like little transformers.
Yeah. Cicadas are so cool.
They are so cool. I mean, there's a million things outside. I couldn't tell you. I always say you can't shop the wild. So I could say there's this outside, but I don't know if you're going to find it. You might surprise me and find something I don't know is out there. I've seen a lot of ladybugs. Yeah. I mean, it depends on what time of day you're outside. It depends on if you're lower in the valley, closer to Jordan River, higher up in the valley. Depends on if you're looking under rocks, depends on if you're looking in the evening, depends on if it's blowing real hard. Bugs don't like to fly around when it's blowing real hard.
Oh, that's interesting. It's been very windy the past few days, it feels like in like Salt Lake City itself. Well then how about this? We will investigate this on Friday when we are looking at iNaturalist with Ellen Erickson. So if you would like to learn what kind of bugs are kind of showing up in your area, tune in on Friday, and we will be sure to ask Ellen to do like a sample of like what insects have been found in Salt Lake. That sounds great.
That's super smart. Yeah, you can cheat and look at iNaturalist, and then you won't have to go outside.
I mean, I'm still going to go outside. You can't stop me from going. I'm going to go outside and I'm going to look at a bug in the dirt, and it's going to be wonderful. Backyard. Let's see. Let me see if I have more questions. I know I have a bunch, and so it's like picking the right next one. Let's see. There's a kind of bug that's new to Utah in the last 12 years, the firebug. So I know we've kind of talked about how we know when something is new to an area with people reporting to like the agriculture services and things like iNaturalist and people paying attention. Where is this bug originally from, and how does it affect the local ecosystem?
Right. So interestingly, some invasives are fairly benign. So some things come here and they just kind of hang out and they don't seem to be a problem, like a house guest that doesn't bother you.
Fair enough.
So let's see, the firebugs. I remember somebody telling me about them, and he was like, "There's this new kind of box elder bug," and I was like, "Okay." So I brought one in. I looked in our collection and didn't see one. I called the BYU collection and said, "Do you have one?" And they said, "No, because they don't live here." And I called USU and I said, "Do you have one?" And they said, "No, because they don't live here." And then I called Washington, D.C., and I called the Smithsonian and I said, "Hey, I think we should be worried." And they said, "We'll get back to you." And in a few months, they sent a researcher out because they were a little worried, and they made their own collection and they put them in the Smithsonian. That was really fun. This guy flew in from Washington, D.C., and then drove around a neighborhood with me and collected in gutters. So these people in this neighborhood didn't realize that like this really important research was happening in their gutters. It just looked like people being strange.
Really important science can happen anywhere, folks. You heard it here first.
Yeah. And then he flew back to Washington. So it was through talking to other researchers, reading about it in the literature. So once I had identified it, I looked in the literature, and there had only been 2 specimens in the United States in 1898 in New Jersey. Yeah.
Huh.
Yeah, it's pretty weird. So how did they get to Salt Lake? We'll never know. We'll never know. But it speaks to how you have to kind of be careful, because sometimes you can accidentally bring bugs to an area. So there was maybe only like 3 or 4, and they are the parents of the billions that now live in the state of Utah and now Idaho, and we're finding them now in Mexico and Canada. So they're native to Europe, and I don't think they're going to cause problems.
Does anything eat them here? I mean, I know that was like the invasive thing, like they don't really get eaten, but do you think anything would like learn to eat them, or are they pretending to be a different bug in some way?
Well, the red coloring is often a warning color for bugs, and like nothing eats box elder bugs that I know of. Nothing eats box elder bugs. I've even had a very, very hungry spider, and I put box elder bugs in to feed her. She won't eat them. But then so anyway, I think, and they're in different families, so they're not super closely related, but they have that warning color and they have some of the same characteristics. Anyway, I don't think they're edible. Don't eat them, children.
Maybe that's not a scientific thing that you, a human, wants to test out. Testing it out with like a fun pet spider, like that seems maybe a little safer.
Yeah.
I also, I think about like the color red and how ultimately like a lot of animals use that as like a please don't eat me. And most animals don't want to roll those dice.
Mm-hmm.
Christy, I have to say, we have a problem. And that problem is our interviews are too delightful and the time just flies by so fast. Because I believe that there's only one question, 1 minute left, but I have the perfect question because I know you love this kind of arachnid. Okay. Camden from Salt Lake City asks, do tarantulas live in Utah? If they live in Utah, what part of the state do they live in? I knew you'd like that one.
Camden, you're my new friend. I wish we were hanging out. I feel like we are hanging out. Okay, so we do have tarantulas here. We have a very sweet species. I call them the teddy bears of the desert. I even wrote like a handout for them. They are very slow growing. They're amazing. So there's 2 kinds of tarantulas in the world. There's arboreal tarantulas that live in trees. There's terrestrial tarantulas that live in the ground. We have terrestrial tarantulas. They're very like sweet. They are super slow growing. Their males mature at 10 years. The females mature or live about 25 years. They're just very, very sweet. They're not aggressive. And because they aren't very good at defending themselves, they just stay in their burrows all the time. So the females will come up to the mouth of their burrow, and it's called doorkeeping. They'll wait to see if food comes by. And if it doesn't come by, she'll just stay in her house. Kind of like quarantine.
I feel that on a deep level right now.
Right? Yeah. So they get preyed on by small mammals, magpies, but especially wasps that lay their eggs in the tarantulas. So if she doesn't, she just needs to stay in her burrow. When the males are mature, they start moving around. And so sometimes we'll see them in the late summer, early fall, where they're roaming, looking for females to mate. I could go on and on and on about them, but I'm very, very fond of them as a species. You can find their holes in the desert sometimes against hillsides. They're usually in a vertical, sometimes surface, because they don't want to collect rain. But oh man, they are so, so sweet.
I think tarantulas are one of my favorite. That was maybe one of the like really changing. I had an experience with a Brazilian black tarantula that was a very old, like a grand old dame of a tarantula, and she was enormous and like just black velvet in my hands. She was beautiful. They're just, tarantulas are so cool. Well, sadly, that is all the time we have today.
What?
I know, it just flies by. But it was lovely seeing you, Christy. You absolutely rule. And my friends that are tuning in, thank you so much for joining us. We will be having class again tomorrow at 9:30 Mountain Daylight Time with Andy, continuing our investigation of the Uinta Forest. And then we'll be having another interview at 11 with PhD candidate Austin Green doing citizen science in the Uinta Forest, talking about more vertebrates tomorrow, I think, instead of invertebrates today. But other than that, friends, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you again for joining us, Christy.
So fun to talk.
Bye, friends. Have a great rest of your day.